The deed cost Caleb Ward one tarnished silver dollar. Not a saddle, not a horse, not even a proper meal in the mining camp. $1 bought him 60 acres of frozen Idaho pasture, a leaning cabin, a dead well, and a stable nobody in Split Pine would go near after dark. Caleb thought he was buying a place quiet enough to disappear. Then the hay in the back stall moved. A shotgun hammer clicked, and from under the broken floorboards a young pregnant woman whispered, "Take one more step, mister, and one of us is dying right here." Caleb did not raise his hands quickly. Men who moved quickly around frightened people usually got buried quickly. He lifted one palm, slow as moonrise, and let the lantern swing at his side. The yellow light caught her face first. Dirt streaked across one cheek, blood dried at the corner of her mouth. Her hair was cut unevenly, like somebody had hacked it off with a dull knife. Then the light dropped lower, and Caleb saw the child she was carrying. She was not a little pregnant. She was full term, shaking with fever, wrapped in a horse blanket that had more holes than wool. Outside, the first blizzard of November 1891 slammed into the Bitterroot foothills hard enough to make the stable groan. Inside, Caleb Ward stood between his new life and the barrel of a shotgun. He had come down from the high country because his body had begun to lose its arguments with winter. 20 years of hauling traps, cutting trail, packing meat, and sleeping under pine boughs had made him broad and quiet and dangerous. But 5 years earlier, a rockslide above Sawtooth Pass had taken his left knee, crushed his hip, and left him with the kind of private wound no man in a frontier town discussed. A surgeon in Fort Benton had told him the truth while cutting bloody cloth from his belly. Caleb Ward would live, but he would never father a child. After that he had stopped looking women in the eye. He stopped answering invitations to supper, stopped riding into settlements except to trade hides and coffee, stopped thinking of any future that required another chair at his table. A man without blood after him, he decided, was just a fire waiting to go cold. So, when Orrin Sutter found him in the back room of Brenner's store and begged him to take the old bellwether place for $1, Caleb did not hear opportunity. He heard weather, a roof, a chimney, lower ground for the winter. Orrin Sutter had been a thin clerk with nervous hands and a split lip he kept touching with his tongue. "I won it in a ledger settlement," Orrin had said, shoving the deed across a flour barrel. 60 acres on Ash Creek, cabin, stable, fence line, water rights tied to the lower spring. Caleb had looked at the paper. Nobody gives away water rights. Orrin's eyes had jumped to the frosted window. Nobody with sense sleeps there, either. He told Caleb about hoofbeats at midnight, a woman crying in the timber, lantern light inside the stable when no living soul was there. Caleb had listened without blinking. He believed in wolves, hunger, bad men, and rotten foundations. He did not believe in ghosts. So he put a silver dollar on the barrel. Orrin snatched it like a man taking a pardon from the gallows, signed the deed, and left Split Pine before dark. By sundown, Caleb was riding toward Ash Creek with a mule named Bishop, a pack horse loaded with flour and traps, and a deed folded inside his coat. By midnight he understood why Orrin had run. The bellwether place sat at the mouth of a narrow valley, hemmed in by black spruce and limestone cliffs. The cabin leaned under old snow. The corral rails were snapped. The stable stood bigger than the house, its roof bowed like a tired back, its doors knocking in the wind with the steady rhythm of a coffin lid. Caleb brought the animals inside first. He always cared for beasts before himself. Beasts never lied about what they needed. He was pulling the bridle from Bishop's head when he heard the breath. Not wind, not a rat. A human breath caught and held in pain. He took the lantern and moved toward the last stall. The hay shifted. The shotgun came up. "Stay back." Her voice was cracked almost to nothing, but the barrel did not waver. Caleb looked from the gun to her belly. "Mom," he said, "that weapon is near as tired as you are. Marshal Vale sent you." "I don't know a Marshal Vale." Liar. The word came out with hatred, but the fever was already pulling her under. Her eyes were too bright. Her lips were split. One bare foot showed under the blanket, blue with cold. Caleb kept his voice low. "My name is Caleb Ward. I bought this place 4 hours ago for $1. I don't know who you are. I don't know who hurt you. But if you keep shivering like that, the baby will know the cold before it knows the world." Her face changed. Not trust. Need. For 1 second the shotgun dipped. Then her body folded around a contraction so violent the weapon dropped into the straw. Caleb caught her before her head struck the stall post. She weighed less than she should have. That frightened him more than the gun. He wrapped her in his buffalo coat, gathered her like a bundle of broken branches, and carried her through the whiteout to the cabin. The walk was 40 yards. It felt like dragging a life across a frozen ocean. The cabin was worse inside than outside. Rat tracks crossed the dust. A bird had nested in the cold hearth. The roof leaked snow through a seam above the table. Caleb set the woman on the rope bed, broke a chair across his knee, and had a fire alive before his fingers could go numb. He melted snow in a blackened pot, boiled his knife, tore a clean shirt into rags. Then he did what mountain men did when the world turned mean. He worked all night. The storm hit the cabin like a living thing. All night the woman burned with fever. When she thrashed, Caleb held her shoulders so she would not roll from the bed. When she begged someone named Ruth not to open the door, he pressed a damp rag to her forehead and told her she was safe. When the baby kicked hard under his hand, he froze. The movement was small. A foot, an elbow, a living answer from inside a dying woman. It struck Caleb in the chest with a force no bullet had ever managed. For years he had thought fatherhood was a gate shut in his face. That night, in a rotten cabin bought for $1, he learned a man could be called to protect a child before the child ever had a name. By the second morning, the fever broke. The woman woke to firelight, snow glare, and Caleb sitting by the door with her shotgun across his knees. She stared at him. "You stole my gun." "I cleaned it," Caleb said. "Then I unloaded it. Fever and buckshot make poor company." Her hand moved to her stomach. "The baby?" "Still kicking." Her eyes closed. 2 tears slid sideways into her hair. "What is your name?" For a long moment she said nothing. Then, barely above the fire, "Ruth Bellwether." Caleb looked toward the frost-white window. Bellwether. The name on the old gate. The name on the deed. The name every drunk in Split Pine had refused to speak plainly. He set the shotgun beside the hearth. "I reckon," he said. "You better tell me what kind of trouble came with my $1. Ruth did not tell it like a story. She told it like a woman handing over evidence before she died. Her father, Amos Bellwether, had owned most of Ash Creek Valley, not because he was rich, because he was stubborn. He had come west as a teamster, found the lower spring during a dry year, and spent 26 years proving up pasture, timber, and water rights, until every cattle outfit in the district needed permission to cross his ground. Then the Northern Range Company arrived with surveyors, contracts, and a promise that the railroad spur would make Split Pine a real town. Amos refused to sell. 2 weeks later, his barn burned. 3 days after that, he was found in the road with a bullet behind his ear. Marshal Elias Val called it a robbery. No money had been taken. Ruth's husband, Samuel, had been Amos's foreman. He and Ruth were married quietly by a circuit preacher because Amos feared Vale would use any unmarried daughter to break the claim in probate. They had one paper proving it, a marriage certificate stamped by Reverend Tully and signed by 2 witnesses. Ruth kept it sewn into the lining of her coat. Then Samuel vanished. "Vale," said Samuel Ran. Ruth knew better. She found his hat in the creek with blood frozen into the brim. After Amos died, Vale produced a debt note no one had ever seen, claiming the Bellwether land belonged to the Northern Range Company through unpaid obligations. The county clerk accepted it. The judge was away. The town kept its head down. But the Bellwether estate had one complication. Ruth was carrying Samuel's child. The circuit judge was due in Split Pine in 9 days. If Ruth appeared with the marriage paper and a living child, the forged debt claim could be challenged before the company took permanent title. So Marshal Vale began hunting her. Not publicly. Never publicly. A marshal did not hunt a pregnant widow in daylight. He sent men at night, deputies without badges, range riders with scarves over their faces. Ruth hid in root cellars, hay wagons, and finally the Bellwether stable, where old loose boards covered a storage pit Amos had built during Indian scares years before. Orrin Sutter had been bringing her flour. Then Vale's men whipped him in an alley and told him they would hang him as a horse thief if he helped her again. "So he sold you the place," Ruth said, voice hollow, and ran. Caleb looked down at the deed in his coat. $1 had not bought him land. It had bought him a woman marked for death, a child that frightened powerful men, and a war that had already reached the door. Ruth watched him study the fire. "You should leave before the snow clears." Caleb said nothing. "I mean it," she whispered. "Vale has 8 sworn deputies and twice as many company riders. They own the clerk, the jail, and half the town. You are one crippled trapper in a broken house." That word should have cut him. Crippled. Most days it did, but from Ruth it had no cruelty in it. Only math. Caleb stood slowly. His bad leg locked, then yielded. He pulled back the canvas of his trouser leg and showed her the ruined knee, the ropey scars, the twisted place where bone had healed wrong. "A mountain fell on me," he said. "Doctor told me I was lucky." His mouth bent without humor. Then he told me what kind of lucky. Ruth understood before he said the rest. Caleb covered the scars. "I spent 5 years thinking a man who can't make a son has no business speaking of legacy. Thought blood was the only proof a life kept going." He looked at her belly. "Turns out blood is only one way the future asks for help." Ruth's lip trembled. "Why would you fight for us?" Caleb reached for his rifle by the door. Because men like Vale count on everybody asking that question too long. Both of them heard it. Caleb moved to the window. 5 riders came out of the spruce line, black against the snow. One carried a lantern shielded under his coat. One carried a coil of rope. All of them carried rifles. Ruth tried to rise and nearly screamed from the pain. Caleb held up one hand. "Stay down. They found me." "No," he said, sliding a cartridge into his Winchester. "They found my place." A voice outside called through the storm. "Ward, this is Deputy Kane. You have stolen property in that cabin." Caleb looked at Ruth. She whispered, "They mean me." The deputy called again. "Send out the woman, and you can keep breathing mountain air." Caleb opened the cabin door 6 inches. Wind blasted snow across the floor. "I bought this land legal." Deputy Kane laughed. "You bought a grave with walls." A rifle cracked. The bullet tore through the door frame and buried itself in the shelf behind Caleb's head. Caleb shut the door, then he shot through it. Outside, a man dropped from his saddle. Screaming into the snow, the others scattered. Caleb moved without hurry now. The cold part of him had taken over. He knew timber. He knew wind. He knew men who mistook numbers for courage. He fired once through the north wall when he saw movement. A rider's horse reared and threw him. He fired again at a lantern swinging toward the porch. Glass burst. Kerosene splashed. Blue fire climbed the snowbank and drove 2 men back into the trees. Then Ruth made a sound that stopped his heart. Not fear, not fever, labor. Her water had broken across the blankets. Caleb turned, and for the first time since the shooting started, his hands shook. "No," Ruth gasped. "Not now. Please, not now." Another bullet punched through the wall. Caleb dragged the heavy table onto its side, shoved it between her and the window, then knelt at the bed. "Listen to me," he said. "You have held off a Marshal, a cattle company, winter, hunger, and every coward in split pine." He placed his hand over hers. "You can hold this world open 1 more hour." Ruth grabbed his wrist hard enough to hurt. "I can't." "Yes, Mom," Caleb said. "You can." For the next 2 hours, the cabin became 2 battlefields. Outside, Vale's men circled through snow and smoke, looking for an angle. Inside, Ruth fought to bring a child into a world already aiming rifles at the door. Caleb moved between both wars. He fired when shadows crossed the windows. He boiled water. He tore cloth. He spoke to Ruth in a voice so steady it seemed carved out of the mountain itself. He told her the spring would come. He told her the lower meadow would green first. He told her a child born in a storm would not spend life fearing thunder. And when Ruth's strength began to leave her, he did the only thing he had left. He told her the truth. "That baby is not just your father's claim," he said, voice roughening, "not just Samuel's blood. That baby is the one piece of proof Vale cannot forge." Ruth screamed once more. A new cry answered her, sharp, furious, alive. Caleb stared down at the infant in his hands, a girl. Tiny fists clenched, face red with outrage. Lungs strong enough to shame the storm. For a moment, every gun outside vanished. Every hard year in Caleb's chest broke open at once. He cleared her mouth, tied the cord with boiled thread, and wrapped her in the softest piece of flannel he owned. When he laid the baby on Ruth's chest, Ruth began to sob. "Anna," she whispered. "Her name is Anna." Caleb pressed one hand against the wall to steady himself. He had never made a child. but he had just helped one arrive while men outside tried to erase her. Then a new sound rolled in from the valley road. More horses. Too many. Ruth heard it and went pale. Vale. Caleb looked at the newborn, then at the broken room, then at the trapdoor in the stable he had carried Ruth from. There was no surviving a siege with a mother bleeding and a baby minutes old. So Caleb did something Vale would never expect from a man trapped in a cabin. He stopped defending the house. He waited for darkness, wrapped Ruth and the child in every blanket he owned, and crawled them under the cabin floor through an old potato hatch hidden beneath the bed. The passage stank of dirt and mice, but it led to a washout gully behind the cabin. Amos Bellwether had built more than a storage pit. He had built a way out. Caleb sent Bishop the mule ahead, with the bundles tied low so his body would block the tracks. Then he lifted Ruth onto a rawhide travois, placed Anna against her breast, and led them into the frozen creek bed while the wind erased their passage. Behind them, Vale's riders reached the cabin and found a fire, blood on the blankets, and no woman. By morning, Caleb had hidden Ruth and Anna in a line shack 6 miles down Ash Creek. By noon, he was back at the stable, not for food, not for blankets, for the loose boards Ruth had been hiding under. He pried them up with his knife. Beneath them, in the storage pit, he found a rusted biscuit tin wrapped in oilcloth. Inside was a survey map, 3 paid tax receipts, a letter from Amos Bellwether to the circuit judge, and a duplicate marriage certificate Ruth had not known her father possessed. There was one more thing, a company contract signed by Elias Vale before Amos was killed. It promised Vale a private bonus of $5,000 when the Bellwether water rights transferred to Northern Range. Caleb sat back on his heels, holding the paper. There it was. Not rumor, not grief. Not a widow's word against a Marshal's star. Proof. The kind that could hang a man if it reached the right hands. The circuit judge was due in Split Pine the next morning. Vale knew it, too. That evening, every road into town had men on it, so Caleb did not take a road. At 3 in the morning, under a moon thin as a knife, he brought Ruth, the baby, and the biscuit tin through an irrigation ditch behind the livery, past the slaughter pen, and into Split Pine while the town still slept. By dawn, the main street had filled with people pretending they were not watching. Marshal Elias Vale stood on the boardwalk outside the jail. Dressed clean in black, his silver star polished, bright enough to catch the weak sun. He was a handsome man in the way knives are handsome. Caleb came down the street leading Bishop. Ruth sat on the travois, wrapped in buffalo hide, gray with exhaustion but upright. Anna lay bundled against her, only a small pink face showing. The biscuit tin rested across Caleb's saddle horn. Vale smiled when he saw them. Not because he was calm. Because men like him believed fear was a room only they knew how to enter. "Caleb Ward," he called, "you are wanted for murder, arson, and harboring a fugitive." Caleb kept walking. "Ruth Bellwether," Vale said louder, "is wanted for conspiring in the death of her husband." A murmur moved through the crowd. Ruth flinched, but she did not lower her head. Caleb stopped 10 yards from the jail. "You killed Samuel Bellwether," he said. Vale's smile thinned. "Careful. You killed Amos, too." The crowd went silent. Vale stepped off the boardwalk. Behind him, 6 deputies spread into the street. "That woman is sick," Vale said. "Her mind is gone. The child is no proof of anything. For all this town knows, it could belong to any drifter who warmed her bed." Ruth's face hardened with such sudden fury that Caleb nearly stepped aside just to let it pass. She lifted the baby higher. "This is Anna Bellwether," she said, voice breaking but carrying. "Daughter of Samuel Bellwether, granddaughter of Amos Bellwether, and the only person in this street your lies could not bury." The courthouse door opened. Circuit Judge Nathaniel Cross emerged in a wool coat, spectacles low on his nose, 2 federal marshals at his back. "What lies?" the judge asked. Vail turned. "Your Honor, this is a local criminal matter." Caleb picked up the biscuit tin and threw it into the mud at the judge's feet. "Then I reckon local criminals kept paperwork." One federal marshal opened the tin. The judge bent over the documents. No one spoke while he read. The town seemed to hold its breath with him. First the marriage certificate, then the tax receipts, then Amos's letter, then the contract. Judge Cross looked up slowly. "Marshal Vail," he said, "why is your name on a private payment agreement tied to the transfer of disputed water rights?" Vail's eyes changed. That was the moment his badge stopped being armor and became weight. He drew his pistol, not at Caleb, at Ruth. Caleb had been waiting for the truth to make Vail stupid. His Colt cleared leather before Ruth could scream. Vail's pistol flew into the mud. Blood darkened his right sleeve. He fell to one knee, teeth bared, his polished star splashed brown. The federal marshals raised their shotguns. "Drop them," Judge Cross ordered. One by one, Vail's deputies lowered their weapons. The town did not cheer at first. Justice on the frontier rarely arrived clean enough for cheering. It arrived muddy, late, and angry. But when Ruth held up little Anna Bellwether and the judge declared the estate claim suspended pending federal review, something moved through split pine that sounded like a town exhaling for the first time in years. 2 weeks later, the Bellwether house had smoke in its chimney again. Not the broken cabin Caleb had bought. The real house above the lower spring, with a porch wide enough for summer chairs and a barn Samuel had once planned to finish. Northern range men had left in a hurry. Vail was chained in the jail under federal guard. The county clerk was already naming names. Ruth was still pale, but each day she stood a little straighter. Anna slept in a cradle Caleb built from cedar planks and saddle leather, because the store-bought one would not arrive until thaw. Caleb fixed fences, cleared the spring box, cut deadfall from the pasture road. He told himself he was only staying until Ruth could hire help, then until the snow softened, then until the roof was patched. Then one morning he saddled his horse. Ruth found him by the corral with his bedroll tied and his rifle scabbarded. "You leaving without breakfast?" she asked. Caleb tightened the cinch too slowly. "Breakfast makes parting heavy." Ruth came down the steps with Anna in her arms. The baby was awake, staring at the world with the severe disapproval of someone who had already survived a gunfight. Caleb tried not to look at her. It did not work. Ruth stopped in front of him. "You gave me back my father's land," she said. "The judge did that. You carried me through a blizzard. Anybody decent would have. You delivered my daughter while men were shooting through the walls." Caleb swallowed. "That was a hard night." Ruth studied him. "No," she said softly. "The hard thing is what you are doing now. He looked away toward the high timberline. "Ruth, I am not the kind of man a child deserves." Anna made a small sound in her blanket. Ruth stepped closer. "Because your blood is not in her?" Caleb said nothing. Ruth reached up and touched the scar that ran along his jaw. "Blood gave her enemies," she said. "Choice gave her a protector." Caleb closed his eyes. For 5 years he had mistaken a doctor's sentence for a life sentence. He had believed legacy was something a man made with his body, or lost forever. But the valley around him told a different truth. Fence posts stood because hands set them. Springs flowed because somebody kept them clear. Children lived because somebody stood between them and the men who would take their future. Ruth placed Anna in his arms. Caleb held the baby like she was made of breath and glass. She opened one tiny hand and caught his beard, that was all. No thunder, no choir, no sign from heaven. Just a child gripping a ruined man as if he belonged to the world after all. Ruth smiled through tears. She needs a father who knows how to stand in bad weather. Caleb looked at the house, the spring, the repaired gate, the woman who had refused to die, the child who had turned $1 of cursed land into something no rich man could buy. He untied the bedroll from his saddle. Then he carried Anna toward the porch. The mountains would keep their silence without him. This time Caleb Ward stayed where the fire needed tending.